Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I didn't realize what time it was. I was working on Foundry and trying to get it to work, and also crying like a little bitch while watching Doctor Who. So
Really?
yep.
Well, all right then.
The ending of the 11th Doctor is a very nice dramatic scene and it has build up, and it was very poignant and emotional, and it
I
was the
wouldn't
end of
know.
a literal era.
The
Um,
last time I really watched Doctor Who, Peter Davidson was still the Doctor.
yeah.
So,
So you can
y'all.
skip all that stuff and just pick up right where Tenet started.
Oh no, I tried watching Tenet. I watched 2 episodes and I was done.
All right. Then pick up at Smith then, because Smith is my favorite.
Well, no, there will never be a pick it up. I don't really. I've seen a couple episodes here and there of the different newer Doctors. I don't care anymore.
Now Smith's entrance as the uh, the 11th Doctor is the best entrance of I am a badass ever put to film. And like, if you haven't seen it, it's the first episode of I think season 8 or 9 or whatever, and it definitely needs to be watched because it and it encapsulates everything the hero should say and how to say it in a heroic way. Perfect. Have we started now?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe. I'm still reading spells. Yeah, no, it's fine.
All right. Introduce yourself now. Read the
Oh,
lines.
oh, hi. Wait. I don't read lines. I just make shit up as I go. I'm Jay.
And I'm Christopher.
No, no, you're not. We've discussed this. You're Chris.
It's Christopher.
Oh my god,
Anyways,
this podcast is gonna be all sorts of all over the fucking place.
oh, I have a topic. Uh, our I was told we needed to have more segments. So this is my segment, and it's called "Stuff My Players Did Last Game," or
Uh,
stuff
ca-
I want to talk
can
about from last game.
can you talk about it?
Oh yeah.
Because
So,
it's Icewind Dale, so you can't really give too much.
have you ever pulled a critical hit when it was on the table?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Ah,
Any any
I hate doing it. I very rarely done it. I can probably count the amount of times in my career that I've not crit somebody. But in this scenario, we were in a combat. It was pretty close. Um, the monsters were able to basically, Spartan them, as in like they were trying to come through the small opening to get to the where the monsters were, and they were just picking them off with spells and range attacks, and they were all just super weak, and the cleric was down super early, and one of my players is playing a rune knight, and they just have all sorts of just amazing abilities that just break the laws of playing the game.
You're not
Essentially,
wrong. Yeah, Rune Knights they're pretty good.
they're pretty good. Yeah. So what happened is there was a crit on the table, and he activated some power rune that he has that lets me reroll the attack. Okay.
That forces you to
Yeah,
reroll the
forced me to
attack.
reroll the
So
attack.
I yeah, I ran into that this weekend from our Rune Knight, who made me reroll what would have been a critical.
Right.
So
So I had advantage. So what I've been doing is it doesn't say like reroll which die when you have advantage. So I just reroll the entire thing. And so I rolled the attack, got the crit. He activated his ability. I rolled it at advantage again. Another crit.
hey, it happens. You know.
It happens. I was like, you guys won't believe me, but he was like, I absolutely don't. It's like, I don't blame you. I really don't. I'd be sus too. And that's
Yeah,
it.
that's a
Sus is the
problem.
word for our new people.
Yes,
Well,
us.
it's not that he didn't believe me. It's just like it was like probably at the worst time. And then they're fighting and they're barely surviving, and um shit is just going sideways, and he gets in the thick of things, and I crit with another attack on him this time, and I was like, shit, that sucks. And he's like, yep, that sucks. And Um, I forgot to roll the second attack from that mob that they get because I was just dumbfounded by the crit. And this attack is a short sword attack that does an additional 3d6 and poison. So
Yep.
the crits are just murdering them. And they're all 10th level or
Yeah.
ninth level now.
Effectively that crits 8d6.
Yeah.
Like that's a
It
fireball.
yeah. And so he took that one. The cleric died to the other crit. And then I think I rolled another crit on him. Okay. And he's still standing after that second crit into him. And that's when um I can kind of tell this player he gets kind of like quieter
Hmm.
when things are just going completely sideways. And I rolled like the next attack, and the next attack was yet another crit. And for the first time in probably at least easily a decade, I was like, yeah, it's not happening. And I felt really bad because like I know they'd be fine with it, and I don't think it would have affected the the end of the combat. I still think they would have won
Yeah.
because the monsters were on the back foot. This was just another crit in a string of crits, and he was just about to go down to this, and it just felt like it wasn't needed. Like it wouldn't have done anything but just piss the player off more, kind of thing.
Right.
Um,
Another crit. This DM's got to be cheating.
right, and I don't think they think that of me, and I definitely don't think of that them when they get a string of crits to go. Um, I happen to get lucky. I always state that it's because of my secret dice storing technique that I have. Um, but it was like I said, it was the first time I pulled a
Hold,
crit in a
hold
while.
on. Hold on. Elaborate. Secret
What?
dice storing technique.
Okay, so yeah, well,
This is way more important than rolling crits. I have to hear about this.
all right. So I don't know about you. Well, okay. This is gonna be long, so let's finish the crit, the pulling a
All
crit
right. All
first.
right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So this is the first time I pulled a crit, and like I said, a long time. And I even took a picture of it just to remind myself that I'm not doing this for me. Like I said, you could easily tell if there's a DM out there who's getting lots of crits and just killing lots of players and having a lot of fun. That crit wouldn't have served any purpose for the fun of the game except making them feel more depressed and sad with how things are going. So I just kind of want to get your opinion on that and
Um.
get an idea of when do you do it. Like I said, I don't do it to save a player ever, you
Yeah.
know, but this is more an emotional save than it was a character save.
I do it to save characters. Pretty much that's the only reason I do it. There is a very specific reason for that though. Because I as a DM, I'm trying to tell a story. It is much less about me winning and more about telling that story. So
Mhm.
if the dice on my side say, well, you're just gonna kill your you know players' characters, at that point I can't properly finish the story that I'm trying to tell. Now, that's not to say that if they get themselves into a bad scenario and take on things they shouldn't be taking on, that I'll pull it. But if it's a situation where they could have been able to win, at that point, I'm more likely to pull a little damage or pull a crit that would absolutely alter the combat.
Yeah, I see. I find that weird because I'm definitely of a different mindset in that. Like, I would rather kill the players and then bring them back in a more fantastical kind of way, and that's the punishment for not punishment, but that's the result of failing, you know, and dying, so to speak.
I am definitely not above killing characters.
Right.
I don't like TPKs. I really don't because TPKs cause the DM a lot of stress.
So, like,
I'm at the point now in Icewind Dale, running through that campaign. If there is a TPK, that's it.
Right, and I'm at the
I
same
want, yeah,
point you are.
right. I won't be finishing the story if there's a TPK. If there is, that's the end of the story.
Well, we could probably brainstorm off the podcast about ways to save that. My
Sure.
group
Yeah.
my group is a little better in that there's a couple avenues on how I can, if they TPK, there's ways of bringing them back to at least finish a story, but it probably wouldn't be their characters, so to speak. It'd be, um, them as like revenants or something like that. So, something crazy like that. Um, so,
Oh, and for any newer DMs who are hearing us talk about TPK, it's total party kill. It's when your whole party dies. Just in case there's anyone out there who doesn't know what it means.
that one person out there.
Oh, there could be.
Yeah. So that's essentially, like I said, I'm working on ideas on how to solve, that issue essentially.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, with
and
Icewind Dale, and we'll discuss it more offline. But yeah, once you get to the later stages of it, man, wiping a party, that's rough. That's going to be very hard to come back if you're running it by the book.
yeah, it just because things just, you can it'd be like going through like the dungeon of the Mad Mage and getting back to the last floor, like can't do much, or Tomb of Annihilation and getting to the Hag room outside of
Right. Yeah.
the final room. Well, yeah, you guys are there, you're dead.
Yeah, like even a
Sorry.
single character dying complicates things. It doesn't make it impossible because there's ways in Icewind Dale to sort of bring in a character, but it makes it really difficult even with a single character going down.
Yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't pull the crit, to save the party in that sense, but I would I don't want them, feeling distraught that, nothing they're doing is
Feeling
getting.
distraught that the DM is just outrolling them.
Well, I think there's a lot of DMs out there who just play to murder, and I think more often than not, a lot of people have come across those. We've experienced them at the LARP all the time, where here's a plot person or a monster who's just for some reason not going down to any death or any fatal that you throw into them, and they're just like trucking through the damage. I'm invincible until this thing happens. Ha ha ha! I'm just murdering people left and right. You know, um,
I've
there.
absolutely run into that at the LARP. In my
Yeah,
30 plus years of D&D, I've never run into a DM who did that. Never
it's
once.
funny because in Adventure League it happens all the time.
Mind you, I have never played in Adventure League, but a lot of my years was playing when there was no such thing as Adventure League.
Yeah, like we unfortunately in the store that we have has a DM that specifically does that kind of crap, and you know, all you do is just make it so that the players just never want to come back and play the game again. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
it's unfortunate and it happens. I think it happens, quite a bit. So I don't want to. I want my players to feel the stress, but if the stress is not fun, then that's kind of the issue. If
Yep.
if they're not having fun, then it's not fun for me. If they're not coming out of the game laughing and cheering and having a great time and wanting to come back next weekend, then I failed. And that is the reason why I pulled that crate, is because I just didn't think that they would have any fun with it. It wouldn't have added anything. And like I said, it wouldn't have
Yeah.
changed the outcome of the encounter. Just one player would have got knocked down, and the rest of them would just have to plink them away a little bit more difficultly.
Yeah.
Difficultly.
Speaking very briefly on the DMs who are trying to win. So there's another Facebook D&D group, DMs group that I'm a part of, and somebody just asked. They're a brand new DM, and they've read through the books and everything, and they were just kind of asking what's things that are not in the book that they should know. And my response was there is a lot to learn, but I gave them sort of three things that immediately came to mind that are important for a DM. And it was basically that at your table, you make the rules. Just make sure they understand what the rules are ahead of time. Always sort of be fair and balanced in you know when you make the judgments on rules. And the other one that was kind of important and on the topic of what you were just talking about, it's not DM versus the players. You shouldn't be trying to win as the DM because
Yeah.
that's ridiculously easy. You can always win as the DM. You're there to work with the players to tell a story, not to, beat them.
Yeah. So, like I said, that I actually pulled a roll and it happened, and like I said, I didn't feel guilty or anything like that, and it wasn't to say it was just like to kind of like just save the morale of the group, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah,
Um,
probably, like, truthfully, every 3rd or 4th game, I probably pull a roll or pull some damage, just a little, just enough to alter the combat in the player favor.
I must be an asshole because I never do that.
Well, I do it for whatever my own reasoning is at the time, and,
Yeah.
you did yours for a very specific reasoning, that it didn't help anybody by getting that crit, so,
Yeah, it was it was a rough fight with just because it was just that one fight and just crit after crit after crit after crit. And it was just
yep. I
so. Anyways,
now
what's your topic?
now if only players would pull their crits on me. Oh, so many crits against me all the time. Do
My
you
my players have started counting it. I should post it after
on how many
every time
crits
we.
they get throughout the course of one evening?
Yeah, I
Uh,
think actually I think I have it right here. Um, where is it?
I don't know. Do you have the issue of as the DM you always go last or nearly last?
No, the problem I'm having with initiative now is that I get groups. So like either it'll be like a couple monsters and then all the players and then a couple monsters, or it will be all the players, all the monsters, or all the monsters and all the players.
Okay.
There's never a nice distribution of
It's never player, monster, monster, player, monster, nothing like that.
right. Eh, And now I'm auto rolling it all. They're telling me what the rolls are, and then I'm auto rolling for all the monsters. And the monsters are rolling different numbers, but it always just seems to be the players are like, here's a couple guys that are all like in the high 20s, and then here's all the monsters, and then here's the people with no decks at the bottom.
Yep.
And it's pretty much the same combat. It's like the ranger goes first, and then goes the bard, and then the fighter, and then it's all the monsters, and then the wizard and the cleric. All right, next battle, same setup. Ranger, bard, fighter, monsters, wizard, cleric, and it's just I don't know how to fix it.
I don't know what it is. I've always, as a DM, always had a curse when it comes to initiative. I could give
Mhm,
my like I could be playing a monster that has +7 on their initiative roll, and I'm still gonna roll like a 3 and go near the bottom of the group.
mhm,
Like it always fucking happens. The scenario we talked about briefly. I don't think we talked about it on here. I'm not going to go much into it, but the monster that we both recently ran, the boss of that area that we were in on Icewind Dale, where I said my
mhm.
players killed it in the first round. That's because I went nearly last in the combat.
I
Yeah,
think uh, I think a lot of fifth edition requires surprise rounds to work. Um, and I don't think people do surprise rounds correctly. And I know we've talked about this in the
oh
past.
yeah, I'm not rehashing it by any means. We've
Yeah,
definitely had a whole podcast about it.
but surprise rounds in fifth edition I think is pretty critical. That boss monster specifically worked off of he gets the surprise round. you know and
Yeah,
without that there, and it wasn't specified in the book anywhere, but just how it was supposed to work, you had to kind of read between the lines and like, okay, it gets surprise, does these things, runs away, and then comes back later. If you just do a straight, Final Fantasy and now you're doing the fight, your player's always going to go first because they min max.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so every monster in that you're going to come across is always going to go last, and then combat's over in a round, and it's going to be very boring, and no one's going to like it. So I think surprise rounds need to happen more. And inversely, I've seen the bad effects of a group that's really well prepared, readying too many um, ready to actions to start the combat in like a pseudo surprise round for them.
Mhm.
Um, like when we do the Star Wars game, and still to this day, um, everybody ready's a ready to action. I'm going to shoot the first hostile target to see. So is every other ranger sniper that we have in the group. And I guess I'm going to throw my lightsaber at them, ready to action. And then the combat starts, and we essentially get a surprise round. But
Here's
it's all
here's
just shots.
Here's the thing I run into, and I've run into this shit for years. Even back in second edition, third edition, and so forth. The party is sort of talking about their plans. They know they know where the bad guys are. They're already sort of in position to surprise them, and then you just have the wizard. I fireball. And I
Yeah.
get this all the fucking time. Before the plans have been completed, before anybody else says this is what they're going to be doing, before saying we're trying to surprise them. You just have this one person who chucks a fucking fireball. And me as the DM, I have to arbitrate that. So I'm immediately going to say, okay, the fireball goes off, surprise round is gone. It's over. That fireball was the surprise round.
Yeah.
And players I don't think have ever quite realized this. Yeah, if you just chuck a fucking fireball before everybody else has given some sort of information to the DM as to what they're actually going to be doing during the surprise round, the round's over. Like you're actually as a player, you're hurting the rest of your fucking group by not
Yeah.
giving them an opportunity to get in on that.
What I've been doing too is I've been kind of like there seems to be like if people sneak into a room and there's multiple monsters that may have multiple ready to actions. And this happened last night actually, where the ranger was sneaking around a bend to a room full of monsters, and he had like a 28 stealth,
Hmm.
you know, but he was out in the open, so they could see him as well. So I didn't let all the ready to actions of the monsters go off, but because he has such a high stealth, the second he exposed himself to that area, one ready to action triggered instead of all three of them.
Yeah.
And I get it a lot more in Star Wars, but it's happening some in my game where the players are like, "Well, I'm right here too. Can't I also take a shot at the thing?" I'm like, "No. This is the cue that started the fight. Is that person firing an arrow or the monster appearing?
Yep.
You know, and everyone tries to sneak in a lot of extra attacks before that happens. You know,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's always been an issue as well. People
yeah.
just trying to sort of dogpile in when they were not actually part of the situation.
Yeah, like I
Uh,
said, I really like we are talking about this on our Twitch stream. We really like the second edition rolling for initiative new numbers every single round.
yeah,
I wouldn't want to do that at the table because it just sounds horrible to do.
it's actually
But
not. It's not too bad at the table. You just have to be very uh, You need a chart already prepared of initiatives that you can just quickly jot down as you go.
li- listen, I can't track initiative that doesn't change. I am not going to be able to track initiative that does change on at the table. But on D&D Beyond, it's just a button click would just redo the whole
Yeah,
thing.
it is absolutely easier doing it online than it would be in person for sure.
Right. So I'm gonna keep suggesting that towards the D and D Beyond folks and see if they can get that added, get that feature added. Um, but the new group that's in charge of D and D Beyond seems to be very distant. Like they used to have a Twitch stream where you could get in there and talk with the lead developer, and he would answer questions for like a good half an hour every single week.
Right.
The new group, they get on, they talk to each other because it's now three of them, and they talk about the cool upcoming things and what there was. They answer three questions and then they leave. And they say, go to Discord or our forums to ask the question. It's very impersonal, and I'm
Uh,
not currently a fan, but
Yeah, a lot of people. I've seen it a lot though, where people are disconnecting from Twitter, from social media, and specifically going to their own private discords. I've seen this a lot with not even just D&D, just in general. Like your favorite band, well, they're not really participating on Facebook or Twitter, but they've got their own private Discord that everybody hangs out and talks in. Occasionally they'll pop up on Twitch or something, you know. But yeah,
We at Grumpy Dungeon Masters have our own private Discord that you can come and join and hang out and chat and talk with us.
sure.
Um,
Yep.
yep, I haven't given the link out to anybody, but it's there.
If you want to play video games with us, just ask.
Yeah, I mean, that's why Microsoft wanted to buy Discord for $5 billion or twenty
Well,
billion dollars. Sorry.
yeah, they understand that people are leaving social media for Discord because it's private. You can make your own space there and control it.
Yeah. So yeah, but it's just it, if you're hosting a live Twitch stream though, to basically give developer updates and the people in the past that would interact with the chat and actually ask questions and stuff. And the new group's just like, yeah, we're not going to do that. Just go to forums or Discord. It's like shouting into the wind. Like
Yeah.
I know for a fact that you can't manage all the questions that's going to flood that place. You know, at least here you have 30 minutes of controlled chaos to figure things out.
Yeah. Yeah. I- it's like an AMA basically. And AMAs, you know, they work somewhat because they are short, they're limited, they are a bit controlled. A Discord, if you get too many people in there, man, there's just going to be all sorts of questions asked that maybe you'll have time to get around to, maybe not. If you're only three people and you're trying to perform all of the updates and all the critical shit for your own program, good luck.
Yeah.
I did you ever get a hold of the guy that used to run that? I thought we were trying to get him on the podcast or something.
What?
D&D Beyond.
Oh, yeah. The problem is that when I, message people on Twitter, it says, you're automatically, message automatically hidden. Can respond if they want to, and they never do. So
Yeah. Oh well.
I tried.
Yep.
I'll keep trying. Need more contacts. Need more good interviews. We got a couple coming up. I think they'll be really good
Yeah. Yeah.
once we find a time. Yeah.
Yep. Hopefully soon.
Scheduling is hard, guys. It's really hard.
Scheduling is hard. So I had a topic I wanted to speak on as well. That
Yes.
I
Quickly move to your topic.
okay. So I do the editing for the podcast. And one thing I try to do when I'm going through the podcast is I can't do all of it, but if I hear the word I try to cut that out because that's sort of
Yeah.
that yeah, yeah, you know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
see my own now I'm starting to do it. Anytime the brain isn't quite catching up, we as humans who are speaking have a tendency to insert things that don't actually have any meaning. And people who are professional speakers spend a lot of time learning how not to do that.
Yep.
So, and things like that. What as a DM, I listen to our other DM occasionally, and he will throw in quite regularly without realizing he's doing it. And because I listen to the podcast and edit it and everything, I hear those. Whether I fucking want to or not, I hear them. So I think every DM as a speaker, because you are trying to speak, you're trying to tell a story. Great speakers, great storytellers, they spend a lot of time trying to cut that out, especially in the process of storytelling.
So what
Uh,
you're saying is, as a DM, I have to not only prepare for my games, create an original world, buy miniatures, buy tokens, buy snacks, buy foods, arrange a schedule for 5 to 6 working adults, and my schedule to all meet at a place at the same time to play a game for at least 4 hours. You hope, and then also hope that no one misses. And now you're trying to tack on top of all that linguistics classes.
exactly. And by the way,
Okay.
you just went through every bit of that and you never said the word.
Right.
Yeah, I just think it's a thing that you don't even have to particularly take linguistics classes. I just think, as a storyteller, be cognizant of it. Be aware that you do it. Don't say, like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, do you know what I mean? Like is another one, but like, um, ah, things of that nature that are just sort of holdovers while your brain catches up. It's better to have nothing there, just a little bit of extra empty air, I think, than to have those words in there for storytelling purposes.
I
Yeah,
know, I know they're filler words, and I know it's something psychological in our heads that we're built with to do that, that have the brain catch up. I say quite a bit,
yeah, I do.
and
I used to as well. That's one I was cognizant of and have started to sort of weed that out.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have the problem with that. Sometimes I stop, and I know that I do it. Now you've mentioned it, I'm very self conscious about
Uh
this,
huh.
and I'm trying my best not to, and it's hard. And I don't know. Just I'm gonna be devil's advocate here and just say. If it makes you feel better, the players will be
It,
okay.
Like if you have to, if every DM can do what they want, but I want people to be great storytellers.
Yeah.
I want you to use adjectives when your players go into a room. Fucking describe that room. And I know me and you have talked about this. You've said specifically that you're not great at doing that. But I think that's part of Dungeons and Dragons is giving amazing descriptions of things and
Yeah,
giving
I can write
speech.
amazing. I mean, I can write an amazing description of a room. I just have to have it written down in front of me for it. You ask me to make it up on the spot, and then every monster that dies is going their head's going to explode because that seems to be the default go to. My brain immediately picks up as like, then they get hit with the axe and their head explodes.
Yeah.
You know
I'm
that
not
actually
great. I'm not perfect at any of this either. I'm trying my damnedest to incorporate more of it. I used to use a lot of adjectives and descriptions in everything, and then I pared it back. Then we started playing online, and it just became okay. You hit him for 12 damage. you
yeah.
know,
For Rum the Frostmaiden, there was like someone posted a list of like 110 things to say about cold. That's not. It's cold.
that's useful.
Yeah, it
There are
was.
certain there's rhyme, there's frost, there's cold, there's chilled. Yeah, there's a lot of adjectives and words to describe cold.
Yep.
So
So
reach outside of your comfort zones. Start picking up a few words here and there for descriptions. I will say that Icewind Dale, at least when you get to the very sort of end part of it, man, they get real good in the descriptions by that point.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's just different writers having, every bit of that thing is written by a whole bunch of different people. But the last section of it, well, I've just gotten to it, and man, there's a lot of good descriptions in there.
I actually found the image and I'm saving it so we can put it up on the website when we post the podcast. They have about
You're
six.
doing it. You're doing it now.
I don't
You
care.
said four. You said four ums.
I don't care. So, so for temperature, they have icy, frigid, glacial, numbing, and burning. For pain, they have biting, dull, thrashing, aching, and burning. Why burning twice? I guess.
Well,
Fear
burning is a painful one, I guess.
for fear, and fear comes up a lot. This is the last list I'll read. We got bone chilling, hair raising,
Ooh.
terrifying, unnerving, chilling, concerning, grim, blood curdling, agitating, nightmarish, harrowing, and spine chilled.
Well, I am a big fan of several of those blood curdling, hair raising, spine chilling. Those are good.
Now, there's a couple here that I don't like. I don't like blood curdling in a frostmaiden sense. It needs to be blood freezing.
Ah, yeah, blood free.
Frostmaiden.
Yes, bone
Bone,
freeze. Yeah, bone chilling would be a bone chilling. I think's a good one for
yeah,
Frost Maiden.
yeah.
So
So
where was this at? Where did you find this list of?
on Reddit, the place you
Right.
refuse to go.
I don't refuse. I'm there every 3 weeks or so for a minute.
But yeah, our the subreddit for Rhyme of the Frostmaiden is really good for a lot of resources. I actually was scouring it today, finding maps and stuff for the next final location,
Yeah.
and I think I got them all. And if not, there's a guy that sells a expansion pack for the last chapter of Rhyme of the Frostmaiden. What he did is he took all the I'm just going to just say towers. He takes
Yeah.
all 8 towers, expands them to a miniature dungeon, and still has what each tower is supposed to be. You can get all 8 of his books right now for $12. It's
Now,
called uh,
I do kind of like how they did the mapping in Frostmaiden because they do give descriptions of these locations, but a
yeah.
lot of it is still left open. And I think that's intentionally so the DMs can create these areas sort of how they want.
Yep, it's called the Expanded Towers of Magic Bundle, and you can find it in DM's Guild. The author is Daniel Kahn. Kahn.
Yeah, for anybody else who's running Icewind Dale, there you go. You you could definitely use them when you get to the later points. I have opted to not do that. I'm running just sort of a blank screen since I'm doing it on roll 20, and I'm just mapping out areas with blocks and things. And so far, my players absolutely fucking love it. So
Now imagine how much more they would love it with detailed colored maps.
having done detailed colored maps the entire game, like all of the campaign, and this is the first time I'm not using colored maps. They actually prefer it this way.
Your your players are so uncultured.
Well, we all live in Alabama.
That's true.
So what would you expect from us? I mean,
You can only
they've just
you can
figured
only
out what technology is recently. You know, computers, that's not a thing that they had until a couple of years ago.
you can only recognize simple geometric shapes because that's what dice are, and that's what we learned in
Yeah.
kindergarten before you
Everything is
graduated
yeah,
at kindergarten.
it's circle, rectangle, square, triangle. That's it. There are no other, you know, ge- geometric shapes. That's it. Just the four.
Hey, get that D20 shaped rock over here.
All right. So another one that I wanted to kind of talk with you about is random encounters. How
Yeah,
often do you use random encounters?
randomly.
Randomly. So you just roll to see if you're going to even have a random encounter during this game session.
Yeah, that's what a random encounter is.
No. I'm just saying at the beginning of the game session, you just grab a d20. Well, if I roll a 5 or under, I'm going to put in a random encounter somewhere during this game session.
Oh, I see what you're asking now. Makes
No,
more sense.
yeah.
Okay.
Like I'm just trying to figure out random encounters to me, they just sort of take up time. They take up space. They don't progress the story. They don't add much to the story typically. I started off with Icewind Dale, and I did a few random encounters in the beginning, just because it's sort of expected. And as time went on, I stopped doing them because all they did was take up my time, and they were generally very quick fights. My players rolled through the vast majority of it. Sure, I could have beefed them up and made them harder. We've already discussed that before, but they're not progressing the story by doing that.
Well, the issue the issue with Rhyme of the Frostmaiden in this particular sense is that random encounters are built in that they happen. Like you have to have those happen in the wilderness, and you're supposed to have those occur. They're supposed to take up time. That was the whole point of having the random encounter table in chapter 1 and in chapter 2 and in chapter 6 and in chapter 7. It's specifically there to beat your players down and use up more resources.
Yeah, but
Um,
we found that resources become not an issue after a few game sessions.
Maybe it depends on how well equipped the party is and how much they've prepared their spells and stuff.
If they're not prepared, then yes, yeah, that scenario. But it even doesn't even have to be Icewind Dale. Just any game that you ever
So
run, random encounters.
most of the time when I introduce a random encounter, it's because I need to add time to the session, or I want to delay them taking a long rest, or I need to weaken them before they get to the boss.
Mhm.
Because that's all fights are, is weakening the party, using up their resources before they get to the boss.
Yeah.
That's why you never let them take a long rest before the boss.
Yeah, D&D is a resource management game.
If they take a long rest before the boss, congratulations, the boss randomly attacks them in the middle of the night and wins. That's the way it goes.
I have
That's
no
the way it works.
problem allowing them a long rest before the boss. I actually prefer it that way. I want them to fight that boss at full strength because the boss is going to be generally so badass, they're going to need it.
No, but that's not how bosses work. You don't become the boss of a criminal empire or whatever and let the invading party take a nap outside your front door in a little magical hut while they get all juiced up and ready for the next day. You have minions to specifically wear them down.
Scenarios
It's like
scenarios matter. Yeah, okay. If you're say you're attacking a rogues guild, sure, you're going to go through this guild and you're going to slaughter all the people that are inside and you're going to fight the boss almost certainly without a long rest because
right.
you can't rest in a place like that. Now, alter that scenario just a little bit. Say it's a much higher level group, 15th level or something like that. Okay, they go in, they murder a buttload of rogues. They feel they need a long rest, whether they do or don't. They then have the magical means to create, say, a pocket dimension where they can go rest. Nobody will ever see them, nobody knows where they are. So you can actually get your long rest in right before the boss.
You can pull it off in some scenarios. Um, but like, you ever seen the picture of Jason Momoa and his bodyguards?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you have Jason Momoa, who's this big beefcake of a man, and his two tiny little
Security guards, yeah.
bodyguards
Yeah,
that are near
bodyguards.
him. Those bodyguards are specifically there to basically, when Jason gets attacked, they basically step in front of Jason Momoa and wound, weaken, tire out the guy that's attacking Jason Momoa before Jason Momoa gets to fight him. And that's how gang leaders stay in power. That's how criminal empires have their lords. They have all these minions that will basically tire out, wear out, or kill everybody before it gets to the big bad. And when it gets to the big bad, he's fresh and ready to go, and you're weak, and you're on your back foot already.
Yeah.
And if you're fighting the big bad with a fresh set of resources every single time, they're not big bads. They're just a speed bump. It's very
I
it's
think a
very
lot of it,
weak from a storytelling standpoint to have that always happen that way.
it
When
shouldn't
you're,
always happen, no.
but like I said, you can make it happen with enough planning and pre-thought with Dimension Door and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if everyone has Liam's tiny hut and it's somehow impregnable to outside forces, then just have everyone just set up ballistas and just wait. Second the
Yeah.
hut drops.
Yes, no, you're also not incorrect on that. So, in the same scenario that I've discussed, say they go through, they kill a whole lot of the rogues, they're not quite to the big bad guy. Well, if you're going to take 8 hours, that big bad guy could have left. That big bad guy could have called in reinforcements,
Mhm.
whether he knows where you're staying at or not. So then you're going to pop out of your little pocket dimension in the morning, just had breakfast, all nice, fresh, did your hair, and you're going to show up and there's going to be 30 guys in there with him.
Yeah.
So you also have
I,
to
I
think of that with taking a long rest. You might be able to get that rest in, but it might actually make the scenario of fighting them a lot worse.
and that is an appropriate response for that big bad, because at that point in time, he now needs to get another set of minions in front of him to weaken the party before they get to him.
Yep. Yeah. So the long rest might not be exactly the best idea.
Right. The big bad is not someone you're supposed to fight at full resources. They have the advantage. You're in their home territory. That is their advantage. They get to have all the resources available to them that they've amassed over time, you know.
Yeah.
And
I sort of have an unwritten rule that I kind of follow. If the big bad guy, if it has lair actions, I probably want my players fighting it after a long rest. Because
Yeah.
things that have lair actions also have legendary resist. They are sort of the cream of the crop. You know, they are the liches, they are your krakens, elder brains, dragons. These are the things that you want to be fighting at full strength.
There are a couple monsters that are designed in D&D to be fought at full strength. A
Yeah.
Terrask, for example. You choose when you fight that thing. It's not a dungeon you go through. So in that case, yeah, you get your long rest, you're ready to go. You've made a plan. But that creature is essentially the entire dungeon and the big bad at the same time.
Yes.
A kraken, an ancient gold dragon or something like that. Those guys are there to be fought in a war type scenario.
Mind you, I have no idea how we got onto the topic of fighting the big bad guy from random encounters.
I don't know.
I guess it was a transition from random encounters eating up resources to not having a full resources when you're fighting the big bad guy. But back to
Yeah.
random encounters, which was the original fucking topic.
Okay.
Uh, I just generally I'm going to avoid them. I don't find they add much to the story, and I've said it several times already. I do feel that encounters that are sort of written into it, say you're going through a dungeon, this room has these bad guys, this room has these bad guys. Those are not random encounters. Random encounters are the ones where you're out traveling in the wilderness, going from point A to point B, and you happen to run into three things along the way. Possibly friendly, possibly not friendly, possibly neutral, but all they do is eat up time.
Well, like I said, most of the time when I use a random encounter, it's to eat up time.
Hmm.
However, there have been times where I've taken like random encounters that are laid out in a book and added them to the story. There's also been times where I've used a random encounter and it's become part of the story, and it becomes a greater part of the story because of that. A good example is we were doing Waterdeep, and one of my players, his brother was in town, and he just wanted to play D&D, so we rolled him up a rogue, and I had a random encounter pop up. I don't remember the reason why. Maybe it was the eat up time or something like that. And I had actually got the entire group trapped in um, a house that was going to basically explode and kill them all. And it was a trap set by a bunch of imps that were in Waterdeep. And all I do is basically get all the players into this house, into this room, lock the door. Fireball goes off on the inside, killing everybody inside. And they take all the golden treasure and move on.
Yeah,
And
I
this
like this
player,
plan.
yeah, it was fun actually. They didn't realize how close they came to actually just TPKing right there on the spot until the brother player decided to make a deal with one of the imps. You know,
Yeah,
he made a deal with the imp, sold his soul, blah blah blah, a bunch of other stuff. Let everybody leave the house, and then unfortunately, all the treasure they accumulated went with them. So now they're like 15 magic items deep and like 10 grand richer because of that. But he passed all the rolls, did all the checks, and it worked out. And because of that random encounter I put in there, they had the resources to basically super fund their mansion even further and making it pretty much an impregnable fortress.
yeah.
And
So
that
that was
came into play later when they started getting
what
attacked.
was that a truly random encounter that you rolled, or was that an encounter that the players could have just come across? I haven't played Waterdeep, so
It was something entirely of my making on the spot.
okay, so it was more or less a random encounter. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember the trap. The trap was something I had saw online or something like that. So I worked that in, but
Yeah.
everything else was pretty much verbatim from the was just a random thing in Waterdeep. And even in Icewind Dale, there's a reoccurring creature that they've come across because of the random encounters that they're now just scared of. They don't want anything to do with.
I
And
w- I will say, having looked at those tables, there's a couple of those in there.
right. And so every time, the ranger's outside, he's like, "Okay, use my primeval awareness. Is this anywhere within a
Where is
mile of
it?
me?"
Where is it? Okay, it's nowhere nearby. We're good for now.
Yeah, and I've actually had to keep track of where it went because of that.
That's awesome. No, that's fucking great.
So they can add some value if it's just random goblins and they're serving no purpose other than just being fodder for the players. That's boring and dull. You
Right.
know, I had a random goblin encounter that's not in the books or anything like that in Icewind Dale, but they had set up clothesline wires in the road at a certain point. So when they came by, they pulled the wires and they got clotheslined off the dog sled so they could jump on the dog sleds and ride them away.
Okay, see that yeah, so the general random encounter, and this is actually a good idea. The general random encounter tables just say, 1d6 goblins or some shit like that. That's a random encounter. That's boring. But doing it like you said, adding a scenario to it, the trip lines or the trap, that makes random encounters much more palatable and much more lifelike within the context of whatever story you're telling. Even if it's
It's-
not directly related to the long-term story, it still gives you a story.
yeah, it's kind of like the players who go above and beyond at the LARP when they're pretending to be boggarts or something. The ones who actually get into the character and make up scenarios for their monsters while they're in town doing things are much more memorable, much more fun to interact with than just spawning from the tree line one. Oh, I'm here. Oh, bad guy. No one
Yeah.
gives a shit. Just go sit down and just give me our eep and just go sit down. You don't want to do this.
Yeah, there have been GMs and plot people over the years who have specifically told those monsters, "You are not here to role play. You're here to go out and die and hand out money." And I will always disagree with that. Always. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, random encounters, man. That's a throw some fucking life into them if you're gonna have them. I personally don't use a lot of random encounters, but if I do, that's not it might be something even I want to start doing because I truthfully I don't really do that.
Yeah, like I said, I think I rolled the Goblin one, and that's why I came up with that idea because you have to figure it out. Like I usually have a couple random encounters at the ready in case my players decide to just go from point A to point B and skip all the fun stuff in between.
Yeah. Well, with
I want
me,
to bring some of that fun stuff to you.
I
Just
have the new campaign upcoming, and I know for a fact where they're going to end up. There's going to be just stuff that they're not ready for, or that's going to be kind of random encounters. So I will have to write up some kind of pre-planned little ideas that I could then throw in there.
yep. So I definitely think they're useful. They have to be done right. They can't just be boring. Even if they are just there to waste time or fill time, they still have to have some purpose or some meaning.
If you make them entertaining, that I think that's the important thing to
Yeah,
come away from this with. Make them entertaining.
I'm always entertaining.
Yep. All right.
That's that's why we have all the listeners.
Yeah. We might be getting more soon, hopefully.
Yeah, we're
Tell
actually
everybody.
coming up close to the year of doing this.
Shit. Oh yeah, we are, aren't we? We started in July or June.
July 4th,
Oh, okay. So almost on my birthday. Awesome.
almost on your birthday. So yeah, we gotta. I'm planning a couple things for like the anniversary thing. Thinking of doing a couple giveaways as well too. Launching a merchandise line. I got a lot of stuff planned.
Hey, do you guys like free shit? Also, do you guys like things you can buy? Well, just stay tuned. We might have both here soon.
Yep.
On that note, bye, Craig.
On that note, I just want to say that I was able to keep my secret dice storing technique and not have to do the spell talking segment. Yay!
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the podcast. Check us out on Facebook at
There's no at in Facebook. It's just facebook.com/grumpy dungeon masters.
and on Twitter
That'd be at grumpy_DMs,
and on Instagram.
at grumpy dungeon masters.
And also be sure to follow us on Twitch.
twitch.tv/Grumpy Dungeon Masters, where we play Rime of the Frostmaiden every Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Fuck yeah.